Good day. I am now in my new place, but the lighting is terrible, so I'm doing the best that I can. Anyhow, uh, it's come to my attention that there are some concerned church members over the fact that I live in a county that's considered a hotspot for COVID. I live a 45-minute drive from the place that's considered a hotspot, even though it's in my county. But nonetheless, there are some people who are a little extra concerned, which is kind of funny considering that where they live, most people are traveling to that very city where the hotspot is, and they're probably neighbors to them. But anyway, be that as it may, I'm going to be away for another week, and we'll see if they let the restrictions ease up a little bit, and we'll see where that takes us. The thing is that when people are so concerned about things, it kind of gives me a little bit of concern that they are fearful to a point that they shouldn't be. I understand caution and everything, but why are people, particularly Christians, so full of fear? That's quite concerning to me. So I think I probably touched on fear before, but we are going to touch on it again. All this fear seems to boil down to one particular item that people have in their home, because the people that don't have this item that I know seem not to be scared, and the people that have this item in their home seem to be rather fearful, or at least more likely to be fearful. And that is the wonderful television. And they seem to watch it a lot. And the more they watch, the more fearful they seem to get. And just some food for thought right there. Maybe you want to consider not being glued to the terror machine as it seems to be these days. I'm not here to say whether or not our current pandemic is truly deadly or not, or be that or whatever it may be. Not here to say that, but I do want to just mention one thing to all the people that are particularly paying attention to to what is going on. Right now, churches in my county are closed, except they're allowed to have 5 people for broadcasting online sermons. However, we still have our schools open with 1,500 plus kids at times being jammed into a small area. So let that sink in a little bit. We have churches closed down that at most around here have 50, maybe 100 people if we're really lucky. And we can't go to worship, but we can send our children into a public school with 1,500 kids in tightly packed classrooms. Not sure what's going on there, but once again, some food for thought. One more thing on that note, want to mention Ebola. Ebola has anywhere between a 25% death rate and a 90% death rate, according to the World Health Organization, with an average death rate of 50% over the entire expanse of their studies. And just curious if you think that they would jam 1,500 kids into a school if there was an Ebola outbreak. But anyhow, I digress. Let's get back to the main point, talking about fear. Because I don't want to argue about death rates, and I don't want to argue about the seriousness of any given situation, because you never know when a situation goes from not being serious to all of a sudden serious. And today's talk is going to be focused on how we should act with things falling apart all around us, and how do Christians respond to that in a Christ-like way. Throughout the Bible, God and angels that interact with humans, as well as Jesus, all say something They all say, do not fear, period. Do not, it's repeated time and time and time again that we should not be fearing anything that the world can throw at us, including the things that may harm our physical body. Regardless, we're not to be fearful. That doesn't mean that we go doing stupid stuff and playing in traffic. It means that we should not fear and that we should enjoy life to its fullest, knowing that God has our back. So God tells us that He has our back, and He tells us not to fear, but why don't we listen to Him? Where is our belief? Where is our faith in Him? And where is the trust that we should have in Him? It really comes down to those three things. They're fairly closely related: belief and faith and trust. See, you believe in something, and then you believe in God, and then God allows you to go through various trials where you have to put faith in Him. And after you have faith in Him and you see that He's worked things out according to your good over time, you then build trust. Because you may not trust whatever you're putting your faith in. For instance, I go out and I go for a drive, and I believe I'm going to be all right, and I've got faith that the other people are going to obey the traffic laws enough that I'm not going to die. But I don't trust them. I don't trust signal lights. Sometimes people put them on and they're not pulling into the driveway before you, they're pulling into a driveway after you. So what do? You wait to see what they're going to do, because you have belief that they're going to do the right thing. You have faith that most of the time they are going to do the right thing, but you don't trust them because you've seen it happen enough times where it didn't work out. So we don't trust people, but God allows it to work out each and every time, building that trust in Him that we need. But of course, a person shouldn't intentionally put themselves in harm's way, should they? Well, yes and no. So we're going to look into that a little bit here. I do believe in avoiding death, and that is why I drive on the correct side of the road. However, let us look at some biblical examples of people and how they reacted to the things in this world. Let's look at Abraham. We've been studying Abraham for quite some time at church, and we've been looking through his life. And so Abraham, he went to Egypt, and then he also went under King Abimelech, and both times he went down there, he told the Pharaoh the first time, and then Abimelech the second time, that his wife was actually his sister, so that he would not be killed by them because she was so beautiful, and he was worried that they would kill him and take his wife. That's not a very good example of having trust in the God that you are following. But he did learn it eventually, but not at that point. Let's look at King David. King David, when he was going up against Goliath, Saul said to him, how are you going to do this? And he's like, don't worry about it. He said, I've gone up against the lion, and I've gone up against the bear when they've taken lambs, and I've gone and I've taken the lambs out of their mouth, and when they came up against me, I struck them down and killed them. And David intentionally put himself in harm's way to rescue a lamb from both the lion and the bear. And when he saw and heard the challenge that Goliath the Philistine had, he accepted the challenge, and he said he's going to be the same way that the lion and the bear are going, the way they went, because I have trust that God is going to deliver this Philistine into my hands. And that's exactly what happened. And David went down and he picked out 5 stones for his sling. He only needed 1, but he picked out 5. Interestingly, Goliath had 4 brothers, and David and his men ended up eventually killing all the all of them, starting with Goliath. Anyhow, it says that I'll read it here. It says in 1 Samuel 17:48. It says, "So it was when the Philistine Goliath arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. He ran into harm's way, intentionally putting himself into a situation where he could potentially die, and he had zero fear." Let's check out a story from Elisha the prophet. So, this is an interesting one. It's found in 2 Kings chapter 6, starting at verse 8. "Now the king of Syria was making war against Israel, and he consulted with his servants, saying, 'My camp will be in such and such a place.' And the man of God, Elisha, sent to the king of Israel, saying, 'Beware that you do not pass the place, for the Syrians are coming down there.' Then the king of Israel sent someone to the place of which the man of God had told him. Thus he warned them, and he was watchful there. And this didn't happen just once or twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was greatly troubled by this thing. And he called his servants and said to them, 'Will you not show me which of us is for the king of Israel, who the traitor is?' And one of his servants said, 'None, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet, who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom.' So he said, 'Go and see where he is, that I may send and get him.' And it was told him, saying, 'Surely he is in Dothan.' Therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God, Elisha, arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, 'Alas, my master, what shall we do?' So he answered, 'Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them.' And Elisha prayed and said, 'Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see.' Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha." So Elisha had no fear because he knew that God was on his side. He didn't have to worry about it. Let's look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's 3 friends. They refused to bow to the idol, and they were thrown into a fiery furnace. They had no fear of what was going to happen. Or let's look at Daniel himself. There was a law that he was only allowed to worship the king, and he didn't. He did what he always did and worshipped the Lord of heaven. And what happened? He was thrown into the lion's den, but he had no fear, and he was not concerned. Those are stories with happy endings, though. What about the stories that don't have happy endings? How about, let's look at what happened with Zechariah. So Zechariah we can find that in 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verses 20 to 22. It says, "Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah the son of Jehoiada the priest, who stood above the people, and said to them, 'Thus says God, why do you transgress the commandments of the Lord, so that you cannot prosper? Because you have forsaken the Lord, he also has forsaken you.' So they conspired against him, and at the command of the king they stoned him with stones in the court of the house of the Lord. Thus Joash the king did not remember the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but killed his son Zechariah. That didn't end well for Zechariah, but he did what he needed to do." And how about John the Baptist, who was put into prison for calling out the sins of Herod for taking his brother's wife? Or how about Jesus himself? Or how about all the apostles except for John, because they all died except for John. Well, they were all killed for their beliefs except for John. Let's look at Stephen in particular. Stephen knew that his time had come, and without any fear, he met it. And Jesus revealed himself to him as he was going down into the sleep of death. No fear. And let's look at what the apostles did before Jesus died and after Jesus died and rose again. And what they did, they went, and not only did they go preaching and teaching, they actually touched those that were sick, and they were healed. They had no fear of those things that were coming upon the people, whether it was sickness, even leprosy. Something to think about. Where is our faith and trust in the Lord? Lord, we ask you that you would save us from our fears. And a good memory verse for that would be Psalms 34:4, which says, I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and he delivered me from all of my fears. Well, that's it for today. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.